Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Rachel. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if it's not your first time here, thanks for coming back. So today we are going to be talking about my favorite thing to talk about, which is eyeshadow palettes. I am going to be ranking the last 10 palettes that I have tried. These were brand new to my collection, the first time trying them. And I've tried them enough to get a really good idea about how I feel about them, and I'm basically reviewing them in a ranking style. Just a disclaimer, these are all ranking based on my preference. So if I'm ranking like your most favorite palette at the very end, that's just because we maybe have different preferences or different things that we're looking for. But yeah, let's just get right to it. All of the palettes that I'm talking about, I will link down in the description box below. And if you love eyeshadow content, give this a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. All right, so coming in at number 10, this is the only palette that I consider like a bad palette. This is the Essence Make Beauty Fun eyeshadow palette. This is not it. Now, first of all, when I bought this, I bought it online at Ulta, and the picture on Ulta looked so much more saturated. The colors looked more vibrant, and in person, they're very mid-tone to light shades. I'm talking more the mattes. So that's already not my preference. I prefer something that goes light to deep. So I was a little bit tricked, if you will, by the pictures on Ulta.com. These shades are very, very buildable. Like the mattes, really not pigmented at all. The shimmers are very soft. They're not super sparkly. They're not super metallic. Some of them like don't even show up hardly at all. Like these marbled shades, they're really barely there. They're more like toppery type of shades. It's just not my preference. I really didn't enjoy using this palette. It was not good. Don't waste your money. Don't buy it. For the price of this palette, I definitely would suggest going with a ColourPop palette. You're gonna get much better quality. I did create one purple look with this palette that I actually did enjoy, but it took quite a lot of work to get there. Like the journey was long to get the results. And so I don't think that's ideal for all the choices that we have now for eyeshadow palettes. I would say just skip out on this one. Coming in at number 9, I have the BH Cosmetics Low Key Love You. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad palette because from here on out, I don't think they're bad palettes. I think quality-wise, this palette is so good. I have another one of these white 9-pan palettes from BH Cosmetics, and I think the quality on both of them is so good. This is more a color story thing. I feel like whenever I created a look with this palette, and by the way, I use these palettes multiple times before I rank them. I don't use something once and then put it in a ranking. I give myself at least 3 times using a palette, and oftentimes I do more just so I can be really sure. But anyway, every time I created a look with this palette, it was very red. Like it pulled very, very red. And that's just honestly not my preference. I don't really love red eyeshadow looks. They're fine. I don't dislike them, but I just feel like it was very red and not my preference. Quality-wise, wonderful. The other one that I have in this, I forget what it's called. I'll pop it up on the screen. That one I love because it pulled a little more orangey, yellow, that type of thing. But this was just straight up red. So that's all. Coming in at number 8, I have the Party in Puerto Rico palette, also from BH Cosmetics. So I feel like the quality on this one is slightly less than this one. I like the color story more on this one because there's more variety. Obviously, there's more pans, so you are probably more likely to get more variety. I feel like the matte shades in this are not super pigmented. They are very buildable, which I think is usually good for a very colorful type of shadow. I'd rather it be buildable than like so pigmented that it's hard to blend and it's hard to deal with. But I will say these shadows are very, very buildable. By the way, this is what I'm wearing on my eyes today, apart from the shimmer, which I'll get to. Well, I'll get to it right now while we're on the subject. I don't love the shimmers in this. Apart from these 2 more neutral shimmers, these other shimmers are not super shiny. They're more like satins. They have like a little sheen to them, but they're not really metallic. And I prefer like a metallic if I'm gonna wear a metallic. They're also quite deep, which I don't prefer. I do prefer a lighter metallic. And so the only ones that are lighter are these two neutral ones. So, not my favorite, not bad, not terrible, but I actually was expecting a little more from this palette. Coming in at number 7, I have this palette from an indie brand called Ollie's Lashes. They primarily make lashes, but this is the Ollie's Lash Zone palette. So I first of all bought it because I was filming like a new makeup releases video, and I came across this and I was talking about it on my video, and then when I was editing it back, I was like, well, I kind of want to buy this palette. I'm really interested in it. So I did purchase the palette. Let me open it so you can see it. I really loved the theming of it, the Twilight Zone. I love spooky stuff. I'm here for the spooky stuff. And quality-wise, this is a really nice palette. I love all the textures that you're getting. These second and fourth rows are all mattes. This is a sequin because it has sparkles in the matte as well. So good variety of shades from light to deep, colorful as well as neutral. Then this row here, the third row, is just super wet, super sparkly, gorgeous, multi-chrome. Some of them are multi-chromes, duochromes, shifty shadows. Just absolutely beautiful shimmers in this palette. They are more on that textured side, but you can see that there's shifts to them when I move my hand around. Stunning metallics, stunning metallics. And then the top row, these are more subdued, these three at least, are more subdued, more standard metallics. I wouldn't consider them satins, but a little more of a standard metallic, not super shifty or anything like that. I've really been enjoying this, particularly the shimmers. And yeah, I think it's super unique and fun, and I love the theming. Overall, I'm really enjoying this palette. Coming in at number 6, this is the most recent palette to my collection, but I did do a 3 looks, 1 palette video with the Nomad Cosmetics Monteverde Cloud Forest palette. So this palette, okay, quality-wise, is, I think, the best palette that they've come out with quality-wise. The mattes are so like perfectly pigmented, yet blendable. They're super bright colors that actually end up looking like they do in the pan, but they're easy to work with, which I think is awesome. And Angelica Nyqvist was talking about this palette, and she pointed out that it's basically a half green, half neon palette. So I can totally see that. Like when you first look at this, you don't see all the greens, but there are a lot of greens. I like green shadows. They're not my favorite colors, honestly, to work with, but I do enjoy green shadows. So this is really going at number 6, mostly because of color story. That's the only reason. This is very, very bright, and I don't wear bright colors super often. I prefer more like rosy tones or neutrals or purples, if I'm even gonna be honest. The metallics are super shiny, opaque. There's one more toppery shade. I think Magical Mist was a more toppery shade. The rest are like straight up opaque metallics. Mattes are great, stunning quality, just color story is a little bright for my preference. Coming in at number 5, I have the other recent release from Nomad Cosmetics. This is the Fits de Provence palette. Of course, I'm saying that wrong. Sorry. This one I feel kind of contrasting to the Monteverde palette. Color story wise, love, 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 love. When they released photos of this before they released it for sale, I literally gasped. I was like, oh my goodness, that is a gorgeous palette. The color story, I mean, they do color stories so well, but this color story like really called to me. I knew I wanted to pick it up. I think some of these metallics, and one of the owners of Nomad, she did talk to me about her, her thought process, and she was saying that like we're best friends or something. Just through DM, I was talking to her, and she said she was trying to play with the metallics a little bit, change the formula, make them a little softer. And I think overall this palette is a little softer. So I prefer like the punchiness and the formula of the mattes and the metallics in this one, but color story wise, I love this one. I love the whole vibe. I just love it. So that's why it's coming in at number 5. Coming in at number 4, I have the ColourPop Plush Like Me palette. Listen, I may be boring, but I am a neutral girl at heart. I really, really am. But this palette, quality-wise, unbelievable. Great. I have the Limoncello palette from ColourPop, which is one of my favorite ColourPop palettes. It has the same packaging, like this textured outside, the weighted packaging, the circle pans, and then the fun mirror with the little designs on it. I feel like the quality between these two is very similar, like just really, really good quality. And this is just a gorgeous, cool toned slash neutral palette, some rosy tones. It's very 90s to me, like super 90s. That's the vibe I'm getting from it. But I really, really enjoyed using this palette. It's very matte heavy, which I prefer. There's only 4 shimmers in this. All the shimmers are gorgeous. The mattes are blendable, perfectly pigmented, really gorgeous. Absolutely love this one. Coming in at number 3, I have the Solman 2 palette from Odin's Eye. This is a more colorful palette, but I feel like the colorful looks I've gotten out of this have been a little more soft. And I don't mean soft by not pigmented shadows, because these are really perfectly, again, that middle of the road, pigmented enough that they look like they do in the pan, but blendable and easy to use. But I feel like they've just been really beautiful, colorful looks that I'm not intimidated by. And of course, we've got purples, which I love purples. These blues, which I'm not a huge blue person, but I've really enjoyed these tones of blue. I think they're so flattering and really like a neutral lovers dipping themselves into color. That's like what I am. I would consider myself. And then of course you have this warm tone row on the bottom, which is like my go-to. And then this black is super black. I used it as an eyeliner the other day. Super black. So beautiful. Fully enjoying this palette. Quality is like the usual, really nice, newer Odin's Eye quality, and just stunning. Mattes and metallics, both wonderful. And yeah, I liked experimenting with this one. Okay, my top 2 palettes, I'm basic, okay? We're just gonna come out and say it. I'm basic, because they're 2 neutral palettes. So my number 2 palette is the Natasha Denona Mini Bronze Palette. Listen, I know everybody talks so much crap about this palette, how pointless it is, how boring it is. I'm boring. I'm gonna reach for something like this often. And I love the Natasha Denona Mini palettes. They're curated 5 pans, easy, to the point. You can make it light, you can make it go deep, you can use one shadow, you can use all 5. They all usually go right together. Only thing I think I would change about this, instead of it being 4 mattes and metallic, is I would put one more metallic in here that's lighter than this, that I could use as an inner corner highlight. That's the only thing I think I would change. But again, I have so many eyeshadow palettes, or I can use my face highlight. It's really not a big deal to do that. Quality-wise, these shadows are just the usual Natasha Denona quality. Mattes are pigmented yet blendable. The shimmers are just that gorgeous, shiny, really beautiful metallic. I love this one. I know it's boring, but I'm boring, I guess, because I've really enjoyed this. Okay, and then coming in at number 1 is another Natasha Denona Mini. And this is not a new palette, but it's new to me. But it is the Natasha Denona Mini Star palette. I like this so much more than I thought I was going to. It is a gorgeous neutral palette, of course, because the 2 mattes in here are browns, right? So we're already starting off neutral. And you've got a more like neutral toned brown shimmer. But then you have the addition of the, oh my gosh. So this is a like blue to brown duochrome, and this is more of a smoother look. I love smudging this on my lower lash line. And then this greenish gold metallic. Oh my goodness, so stunning. So I personally feel like this is more of like a neutral palette with a twist. That's kind of how I would classify this. And I love that this has enough versatility that I can get several different looks out of it. You know, versus the bronze palette, I'm not gonna get that many different looking looks out of the bronze palette. Out of the Mini Star, I feel like I can either just go straight neutral, I can put that green gold, or I can use the duochrome. And you've got 3 very different looks if you just use the same mattes and pop these different metallics on the lid. And I feel like when you have a tiny little palette like this that provides versatility, that is a bonus. It's not something I expect, but it is a huge bonus when I get that. Love this palette. Obsessed, love it. The Mini Love, was always my favorite Natasha Denona Mini, but I think this has become my new favorite Natasha Denona Mini that I have. So, yeah. All right, and that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment down below letting me know if you've used any of these palettes, what your thoughts are on them, or do you want to pick up one of these palettes? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I love hearing from you. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot when you do that. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to subscribe before you leave. I do upload videos weekly, both beauty and fashion videos, and I would love to see you back on my channel again. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.